joining Healthy Cooking for Seniors on a Budget. My name's Darla.
And I'm Catherine. We're from the Good Shepherd Community Health and Outreach Department. This class is available through funding from the Good Shepherd Foundation. So the first recipe we're going to be cooking is zucchini salad. And again, all of these recipes are pulled from Food Hero, which comes from OHSU.
Okay, so what we're going to need first is our teaspoon or a mixing bowl and a teaspoon oil. So you guys should have all got a little bottle like this.
Got 1 teaspoon measurement here. I'm going to open this extra virgin olive oil. I did wash my hands before this, so just like with anything, when you're cooking, you want to make sure you have a clean surface and clean hands. Measuring a teaspoon, and I'm just pouring it in the bowl.
Okay, next ingredient that we have is going to be 2 tablespoons of lemon juice.
Lemon, I'm going to go wash it and take the sticker off real quick. Just going to cut it off our cutting board. If you want to measure 2 tablespoons, that's up to you. Probably just going to eyeball it. However much lemon or how much acidity you want is up to you. 1 tablespoon. I did lose a seed in there, so I'm going to scoop it out. Okay.
All right, next ingredient, we have the dried oregano. And that's going to be a 1/4 teaspoon of the dried oregano.
I'm going to try to measure it on this little spoon and just give it about a 1/4. But again, it's also what you want to do. This is just going to be, I just sprinkle it right into the bowl. And I think the recipe says that you can also use dried basil. So if you're cooking at home, you want to grab your dried oregano and dried basil.
Okay, and we have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and pepper.
Are these little packets, unless you guys have whole container salt and pepper at home, or if you don't want to use salt, if you're watching your blood pressure, you can just knit it. I'm going to open these packets and throw them in the bowl.
We're going to take our zucchini and get it cut up. I'll get rid of this lemon for you.
These are already washed, but these are 2 large zucchini from the store. I think the recipe says about 4 small ones, but we just improvised. What I'm going to do is just cut off the ends, the big ends, smaller ends. I'm going to slice them pretty thin, but it depends how comfortable you are using a knife, how thick you want them. Try to get this. I love zucchini. Summer food. But will say, if there's anyone who might, have trouble chewing bigger pieces, you can cut this into quarters. You can chop it up instead of slicing it. It's up to you. Or even if you make this for your grandchildren or children for the holidays, and you just want it to be smaller, bite-sized pieces. Okay, so I've done one. I'm going to put that in a bowl. And I'm going to slice the second one. If I'm going too fast, take your time. We'll wait for everyone. There's no need to rush. I don't know, again, if people are cooking from home, you've probably looked at the recipe, but if you want to throw in some other vegetables on top of what we're doing, or if you have garlic or other herbs and you want to throw them in, the fun of cooking, you can just improvise. We're just going to be working with the recipe though. Almost done here. I'm going to add it to the bowl. Yes, I will get a spoon.
Oh.
I'm going to mix this up. I'll show it to you at the end.
Next thing we're going to need, Catherine, is the red sweet onion.
How much do we need?
We need a half a cup.
Okay.
Thinly sliced.
So most people or everyone should have gotten half of a red onion. If you don't like red onion, or if you don't like it raw, if you have sweet onion, you can substitute it. But I'm just going to use this whole half of a red onion because I think that'll be about a cup or half a cup when it's chopped up. I'm going to cut off the end. Make sure all of the side skin. And we're chopping this, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thinly sliced or chopped.
Thinly sliced or chopped. Okay, I'm going to chop it because it's going to make it easier. And it'll be slightly smaller pieces so you don't bite into a huge piece of red onion. Maybe I'll just do half. What do you think? Does that sound good?
Half.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be tasting this at the end once we finish with all the recipes. Again, if you just want to add a little bit for flavor, that is up to you, or not at all. So this actually might be about half a cup chopped. I'm just going to add this into the bowl.
And we're going to just want to stir that up gently.
So if anyone's cooking with us, or if you're just watching for now, kind of what it looks like. Nice little combination of ingredients. And if you want to add some more oil or some more lemon juice, that's up to you. Ours is pretty, I would say it's pretty fairly coated, but once we do the taste test at the end, we'll see if we want to add anything else. So once it's mixed, what do we do?
We're gonna just cover it and chill it until we're ready to serve it at the end of the show.
Great. So I'm going to put this in the fridge, and then we'll try it in about 20 minutes. Okay, so the second recipe we're going to be doing is southwestern stuffed potatoes. Again, this is from Oregon State University Food Hero. Okay, so the first things again, we're going to start with clean hands. So if you want to wash your hands again, or if they're still clean from doing the first recipe, that's up to you. And the second thing we're going to do is wash our potatoes. So the ingredients call for 2 medium potatoes, but we substituted sweet potatoes because they're a little bit higher in nutrient quality compared to white potatoes. If you have white potatoes at home and you want to use those, go for it. So we have 2 sweet potatoes that we're going to wash and try to get all the dirt off as best we can. And then the recipe says we're going to poke each potato with a fork 2 or 3 times. So if you have a fork or if you have a small knife, you just want to make sure you poke through the skin so that when we pop it in the microwave, it's able to release the air. And again, if you're using white potatoes or sweet potatoes, we want to do the same thing.
Hey, we got our pokes in there.
All right, we're going to pop them in whichever microwave you're using on high for about 5 minutes. Then after that, we'll turn them over and microwave for another 3 to 5 minutes. Now, I know this microwave that we work with is really high intensity. So I'm going to say let's try cooking them for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll check on it, flip it, and cook it for another 2 to 3 minutes. So if you guys are familiar with your microwave, go off of that. If you're not sure, I would say maybe start with 3 minutes and go from there.
And also make sure you're using microwave safe utensils when you microwave.
Definitely want to make sure it's on a microwave safe plate or bowl. Okay, so ours looks pretty cooked after about 8 minutes. So it took our 1 sweet potato about 8 minutes to cook all the way through in this microwave. Everyone's microwave is going to be different. That's how long ours took. All right, so now that we took it out of the microwave, we're just going to put it to the side and we're going to deal with it later. We're going to let it cool down a bit because it's going to be very hot once you take it out. And in the meantime, we're going to make the concoction that we're going to pour on top. So we're going to get a bowl.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So again, while the potato is cooling, we're going to work on the rest of the recipe. So it calls for 1 cup of black beans, rinsed and drained.
Okay, we got our 1 cup measuring cup and our black beans. We did provide everybody with a pull top in case you don't have a can opener at home. Be careful when you take those lids off. They can be a little sharp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get me a spoon. Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if you're going to follow the recipe by heart, you're going to measure out 1 cup of black beans or whatever beans you want to use if you have the alternatives at home. If you want to eyeball it, it's probably about 1/3 or half of the can if you're using a can.
Yeah. Worked out perfect.
And we're just going to put that into a big mixing bowl. Next, we're going to do 3/4 cup of the salsa. So we can use any salsa you have. If you have fresh salsa, if you just have tomatoes at home, that's an alternative as well. We have a 1/4 cup measurement, and we're going to do 3 of those. Again, if you're eyeballing it, it's going to be just a little less than what you had for the beans.
1, 2, and 3.
And then the next part, we're going to do a cup of corn and add that to the mixing bowl as well. Again, we got no salt added canned corn. If you have frozen corn, or if it's summer and you have fresh corn, those are also other options.
Again, be careful opening these lids. Now, did we want to rinse the corn?
You can. These are all no salt added. So if you have corn that has added salt in it, which most of it is, unless it's explicitly stated no salt, that's up to you. If you want to drain it and then measure out a cup, you can do that as well. Just because the corn is a little liquidy.
Okay, we got most of that liquid drained off the corn, and you said a 1/2 cup? Or
we're going to do a cup. Yeah, if you like corn, do a full cup. If you want to cut back on the corn, you can just throw in a little pinch or 1/2 of a cup. So now that we've got all of these in a bowl, we're just going to mix them up. If you want to pop it in the microwave and make it hot, that's what the recipe calls for. We only have a metal bowl, so we will not be putting it in the microwave. But you're just trying to get it pretty evenly mixed together. Again, if you want to pop it in the microwave for 2 to 3 minutes and get it nice and hot, that'll prepare us for the next step. So we'll wait if people want to do that.
That smells fantastic.
It does. And I will say this recipe is, again, it's easy. It's meant to be affordable and nutritious. But if you have some herbs or some spices at home, rather, want to throw in some chili powder, or if you want to add some black pepper or cumin, things that might typically go with something that's southwestern, you can absolutely add those in. So if you want to pop those in the microwave, wait another minute. The next step, though, is that we're going to cut the potatoes lengthwise in half. So while your mixture is heating up, if you want to grab your potato or potatoes and just cut them lengthwise. So we're going to want to go down the long edge of the potato.
And these potatoes still might be a little hot, guys, so be careful you don't burn yourself. So if everybody can see, we're just going to cut right down the middle. Looks great.
Just say flatten with a fork. I don't know if we need to flatten it, but if you want to smush it down, it might make it a little bit easier when we pour the bean and corn mixture on top. So if you want to put it on a plate and just kind of level out everything. Next step is we're going to sprinkle with a 1/2 cup shredded cheese. So this is, again, for 2 whole potatoes. We only used 1. So we're going to do about a 1/4 cup or just a little sprinkle on top after she has flattened it down. It's steaming, yeah.
It's a steaming. Okay, and you said that was a 1/4 cup of cheese?
Yeah. So the recipe says a 1/2 cup for 2 whole potatoes. It's also up to you if you want to use more or less cheese, what you prefer. But if we're going by the recipe, it says a 1/2 cup shredded cheese for 2 potatoes. And we're measuring out a 1/4 cup for our 1 potato. Because our potato is really hot, I think it's going to melt, which is what we want. And then if you have your heated up mixture with the beans, the salsa, and the corn, you can put that on top as well.
So good. And so what was the serving for this? A 1/2 cup of the mixture?
So ideally, the whole mixture we made is made for 2 potatoes. So if you have 4 half potatoes, you're going to split up your mixture into 4 equal sections.
Okay.
Again, depending on what people like, but that's what the recipe calls for.
Oh, that looks so good.
Yeah, so if you had heated that up in the microwave, it would definitely melt the cheese. Our third one is baked apples and cranberries.
Ingredients we'll be using for that will be an apple, dried cranberries, cinnamon, and brown sugar. Oh, nice little packet we got here. And butter. And there should be a little butter packet, unless you prefer to use your own, in the bag that we provided, and a brown sugar packet. You guys find everything okay? Great.
All right, so first step, again, as always, wash hands with soap and water unless they're already clean. The second step is we're going to make sure we wash the apple, and we're going to remove the core, which is just where all the seeds are. We want to make sure when we're removing the core that there's still a little bit of apple at the bottom. So it's not going to be a hole all the way through. It's just going to be partial cavity. So we're going to carve out most of it and then leave a little bit at the bottom, so when we pour cranberries and butter and sugar in it, it doesn't fall out of the bottom of the apple. And so again, washing our hands, washing the apple, and we're going to remove the seeds from the apple, and we're going to try to do this as carefully as possible.
So be very careful using the knife.
Yeah, not cutting all the way through, so that there's kind of like a very shallow bowl apple. Or I guess a deep bowl in the apple. And while you're doing that, the next step is also to peel a small band of skin around the top of the apple. So we're not peeling the entire apple, but we're just trying to get the skin around the top in addition to coring most of the apple out. Remembering to take your time. We don't want anyone to hurt themselves or to nick yourself with your knife. Nice about this recipe is the serving size, as you can see on the nutrition label. It's just 1 apple. So you're going to get easily one serving of fruit if you're making this for yourself. But it's also, as you can see in the picture, a pretty easy recipe to make if you're having a holiday party or if you just want to make something for someone coming over to your home with tea. Does not take too much time at all.
I think I'm getting close here. How's everybody else doing with their apple coring? Good? I hit the bottom.
Yeah, and that's okay. If you accidentally end up going all the way through, it's not a big deal. It's what the recipe's calling for.
So you should have it hollowed out like that, all the seeds and tough stuff out of there. And then we're just gonna peel off the top layer.
Yep.
To make it pretty.
I don't think we said, but this is a baking apple, so this is a Granny Smith. We just chose something a little more tart, so then when we cook it, it's not super sweet.
Hey.
So once everyone is done with that, we're going to get a microwave-safe container. So it can be a plate, or it can be a shallow little bowl. It can be whatever you have lying around, as long as it can go in the microwave. And we're just going to put the apple on top of that container. Next, we're going to sprinkle cinnamon on top of the apple and in the hole that you've made. It just says cinnamon to taste, so as much cinnamon as you want to add. Also, if you've got other spices at home, you can add nutmeg or allspice. Sometimes turmeric and black pepper is a really good addition. You can't taste it that much. It's so artfully.
Mm.
It smells so good.
I love the smell of cinnamon.
Yeah.
Hey.
All right, next, we're going to fill the center of the apple with cranberries, pressing down if needed. So the recipe calls for a tablespoon of dried cranberries. If you have raisins or if you have other dried fruit at home, you can use that instead. But we're going to be using about a tablespoon of dried cranberries, just filling the center of our apple.
Is that a...
Yes, got oregano.
Oh, okay. Is it a tablespoon or a teaspoon?
We're going to do a tablespoon, and this is half a tablespoon.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do, I guess, a tablespoon of dried cranberries.
Or a little bit more than a tablespoon, whatever comes out.
Yeah. And then it says top the cranberries with brown sugar and margarine or butter. So if you want to add sugar, white or brown, and margarine or butter, put that on top. We're just looking for a teaspoon. If we're using sugar, a teaspoon of brown sugar, and then half a teaspoon of margarine or butter. So it's not going to be swimming with sugar and butter, but it's just going to enhance the flavor.
So I'm going to use my teaspoon here and measure out. And you said half a teaspoon? 1 teaspoon.
1 teaspoon packed brown sugar. Yep, is what the recipe calls for.
Perfect.
And then lastly, about half a teaspoon of margarine or butter. So if you're using a stick of butter, those little lines on the side are a tablespoon. So we're just going to, it's not that big. It's just half of a teaspoon of margarine or butter. Just a little bit of moisture while it cooks in the microwave.
I got my teaspoon out here.
And then the last part before we put in the microwave is we're going to grab the wax paper that was in your folders, and we're just going to cover the apple loosely with wax paper and microwave on high for about 2.5 minutes or until the apple is soft when poked through the center hole with a fork. So again, depending on your microwave, it's going to be somewhere around 2.5 minutes after we cover it with wax paper. So ours is a really big piece, but you can cut it into quarters if you want, but this way it just tends the apple.
Oh, just like that. Okay.
Yeah. And we're gonna pop it in the microwave for about 2.5 minutes.
This is what it should look like. Okay, please be careful when you take it out of the microwave.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that looks pretty delicious. So do you recommend just slicing it up from here, or?
That's a good question. It says when it's soft, that's when the center is soft, you know it's cooked, and just let it cool slightly. So if you have a knife or if you have a fork, you can probably just start eating it, but I would recommend letting it cool maybe a bit. Let me grab our zucchini out of the fridge and we can look at all of them together. So thank you for cooking these 3 recipes with us. Again, this is our zucchini salad. And we've got the southwestern stuffed potatoes and the baked apple and cranberry.
Thank you so much for cooking with us today.